Welcome to the Biblical Mama podcast, where faith and motherhood meet. I'm your host, Shelly Garcia. Each week, we dive into the beautiful chaos of being a mother and a woman of God, exploring what it truly means to live out our faith with every fiber of our being. From inspirational stories and practical advice to heartfelt conversations and spiritual insights, we're here to uplift and empower you as you navigate your sacred calling. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfy spot, and join me as we embark on this journey together. Let's discover how to embrace our roles as mothers and daughters of the Most High, and learn how to follow God's path with grace, strength, and unwavering devotion. Welcome to the Biblical Mama podcast, where faith and motherhood meet. Hey there, and welcome back to the Biblical Mama podcast. I'm Shelly, and I am so glad you're here today. Last time, we talked about 3 powerful ways to strengthen your marriage: love, forgiveness, and prayer. We explored how love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice we make daily through our words, our actions, and even the way we serve our husbands. We also talked about the power of forgiveness, how holding on to past hurts can create walls in our marriage, but choosing grace allows healing and restoration. And finally, we focused on prayer, the most important tool we have in inviting God into our marriages and aligning our hearts with His will. Today, we're continuing that conversation by diving even deeper into how we can build intimacy in our marriages, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and overcome the challenges that can make us feel distant from our husbands. Because the truth is, love, forgiveness, and prayer lay the foundation for intimacy. But intimacy isn't something that happens automatically. It's something we must cultivate with intention. And when we do, our marriages can become a beautiful reflection of Jesus' love. So whether you're feeling deeply connected to your husband right now or struggling with distance, this episode is for you. Let's talk about how to draw closer, overcome obstacles, and build the kind of marriage that honors God and blesses both you and your husband. First thing I want to talk about today is biblical intimacy, which is a lot of times misunderstood. A lot of people think of it as just physical, but biblical intimacy is about complete unity, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. We'll break that down here in just a minute. But first, I want to go back to the creation story when Adam and Eve were created in Genesis 2. God had created the first man, Adam, out of dirt. He then decided that it wasn't good for him to be alone, so he created the first woman, Eve, from Adam's rib. God brought her to Adam to be his forever helper. Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." This one flesh relationship is God's design. It's a deep, unbreakable bond where we experience true companionship, trust, and love. Biblical intimacy is also about being fully known and fully loved. Just like Jesus fully knows and fully loves us, it's about building trust, vulnerability, and connection. And now we're going to break that down into the 3 different aspects of intimacy. First, we're going to talk about spiritual intimacy. This section is going to be a little bit long on spiritual intimacy because I really want to dig in and talk about what it means to be spiritually intimate with your husband. Spiritual intimacy is the foundation of a strong, God-honoring marriage. When you and your husband grow spiritually together, it strengthens every other area of your relationship. A marriage rooted in Christ is built on an unshakable foundation. Matthew 7:24-25 reminds us, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock." When your marriage is built on Christ, it can withstand life's storms. So let's talk about some ways you can cultivate spiritual intimacy with your husband. First one, Pray together daily. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them." When you and your husband pray together, you're inviting God's presence into your relationship. So you could, before bed, hold hands, say a simple prayer like, "God, help us to love each other the way you love us, and help us grow in our faith together." Another example, read the Bible together. Psalm 119:105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Most people have probably heard this verse, but I want you to remember this. Apply it to your marriage, because the Bible guides our marriages. It guides both of us and our husbands. It helps us to navigate challenges with wisdom. So hang up this verse, put it on your mirror, put it on your window where you wash the dishes, or just put it on a bookmark or whatever. Put it on sticky notes somewhere in your house so you can remember. Reading the Bible is really where you can set your foundation for marriage. Here's a couple ways you can read the Bible together. You can choose a devotional that goes along with the Bible, or a book of the Bible to go through as a couple. Discuss how it applies to your marriage. When you meditate on His Word together, you grow closer to Him and to each other. Another way to become spiritually intimate is to worship together. Colossians 3:16 encourages us, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God." When you and your husband worship together, it strengthens your spiritual bond by reminding you both who is at the center of your marriage. So you could play some worship music while cooking dinner together and let it spark a conversation about what God is teaching you. Or you could both just sing, one of your favorite hymns or whatever, and then just talk about what that hymn means. Another way to build spiritual intimacy, talk about faith regularly. Deuteronomy 6:6-7 says, "These words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise." Share what God is doing in your heart and encourage your husband to do the same. Spiritual intimacy grows when faith is an ongoing conversation, not just a Sunday activity. Your faith should be a natural part of your daily life. Something we talk about in the little moments, not just the big moments when you really, really need it, but every day in all the moments of your life. Talk to your husband about it. Talk to your husband about what God is doing in your life and what God is speaking to you. An example, you could ask your husband, "What's something that God has been teaching you lately?" Or, "How can I pray for you this week?" Or, "How can I pray for you today?" The last way I want to talk about that you can build your spiritual intimacy is serving together. Galatians 5:13 reminds us, "Through love, serve one another." Serving others as a couple strengthens both your faith and your marriage. When you minister together, you align your hearts with God's mission and deepen your connection as you work together to bless others. One example, you could visit a family in need, or you could serve at a food pantry together. A Christ-centered marriage doesn't just happen. It's built daily through prayer, worship, God's word, and serving together. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, "Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken." When you and your husband are united with God, your marriage becomes strong and unshakable with a firm foundation. The next aspect of intimacy that I want to talk about is emotional intimacy. This one can be kind of a harder one to talk about, mostly because most people don't really think about your emotional intimacy being, the most important thing in your marriage. But it is what makes you feel seen, heard, and valued in your marriage. It's about sharing your heart, being vulnerable, and creating a safe space for each other. Proverbs 31:11 says, "The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain." This verse beautifully captures the essence of emotional intimacy. When a husband can fully trust his wife with his thoughts, his struggles, and his emotions, it strengthens their bond. A wife who creates a safe and loving space for her husband's heart fosters a deep connection and security in their marriage. Some ways to build on that emotional intimacy: have intentional conversations. Go beyond the surface level talks about kids or work. Ask deeper questions. So instead of asking, "How was your day?" try asking, "What was the best part of your day, and what was the hardest part, and why?" You can set aside distraction-free time, because in our busy world, it is so easy to get caught up in screens and to-do lists. Be intentional about giving your husband your full attention, undivided. Like, you could have a no phone rule at dinner or before bed so you can focus on each other. Write love notes or texts. A simple "I appreciate you" can make your husband feel valued. Or you could leave a sticky note in his lunch or in his wallet saying, "I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for working hard for our family." Also, you can express appreciation. Compliment your husband on things you admire about him. Like, instead of only pointing out what needs to change, say, I love how patient you are with the kids," or "I appreciate how much you make me laugh." Try a 10-minute connection rule. Spend 10 minutes each day talking with no distractions. So you could do in the morning while you're getting ready. Well, really and truly, you can't do that, so scratch that. Spend 10 minutes each day talking with no distractions. So what you could do when you get home, after getting off work, or even when, if you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband comes home from lunch, give those first 10 minutes to him, to both of y'all, and just talk about your day for 10 minutes. Set a timer. And then get to the, making dinner or whatever, like if you have a game you have to go to for the kids or whatever. Or before bed, just sit together, set your timer, 10 minutes, and just talk to each other about what's on your mind or what you've been going through. And finally, you can share your dreams and goals. Talk about what excites you and listen to your husband's dreams too. Ask him, "Where do you see us in 5 years? And what's one dream that we can work toward together?" When we create a safe, loving space where both spouses, you and your husband, feel heard, your emotional intimacy will flourish. The last aspect of intimacy I want to talk about is physical intimacy. Now, it isn't just about sex. It's about affection, connection, and making your husband feel loved through touch. Small gestures like holding hands, hugging, or gentle touch on the shoulder can create a sense of closeness and security. Song of Solomon 7:10 says, "I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me." This verse is so beautiful because it reflects the deep God-given connection between a husband and a wife. How much you desire both of each other and how you are both each other's. Physical intimacy is more than just a physical act. It's an expression of love, desire, and emotional closeness. When we embrace physical affection in both big and small ways, we nurture the bond that God designed for marriage. Some ways you can do this: prioritize affectionate touch daily. Small acts of touch throughout the day keeps intimacy strong. You can hug your husband when he walks in the door, kiss him, hold his hand while watching TV, or rub his shoulders after he's had a hard, long day. Plan date nights, special moments. Romance doesn't have to fade after marriage. Don't let it. You can surprise your husband with his favorite meal, light some candles, and have an at-home date night. Also, you can be intentional about intimacy. If you're exhausted or feeling disconnected, schedule intimacy to make sure that it remains a priority. For example, put it on the calendar if you need to, just like you would for an important meeting. Making time for each other is an act of love. And I just want to add, if you do have to add it to the calendar, that is totally fine. Don't let that take the romance out of it. Don't let it take, the spontaneity out of it. It can still be fun, even if you have to put it on the calendar. Nowadays, we are all so busy, so it's totally okay. Also, flirt with your husband. Keep the spark alive by being playful and fun. Send him a flirty text during the day or whisper something sweet in his ear while he's doing the dishes. And then also talk about intimacy openly. If there's struggles in that area, discuss it with him with love and patience. Say, what makes you most feel loved in our physical relationship? And tell him your needs too. When physical intimacy is built on love, respect, and mutual desire to connect, it strengthens the entire marriage. But if intimacy was easy, every marriage would be thriving. But the reality is we all face challenges that can create distance. Here are some of the biggest ones: busy schedules and exhaustion. Just like we were just talking about, life is demanding. Between work, kids, household chores, and ministry, it's easy to get so caught up in doing that we forget to be simply present with our spouse. We spend our energy on everything else, and by the end of the day, we're too tired to invest in our marriage. So be intentional about scheduling time for each other. Unresolved conflicts. Small arguments can turn into emotional walls when left unaddressed. Holding on to resentment slowly erodes trust and intimacy. Learn to resolve conflicts quickly and biblically. Ephesians 4:26 says, "Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry." Approach your disagreements with grace, seeking understanding, not just being right. Lack of communication. Without open, honest conversations, intimacy fades. Many couples talk about logistics, but never share their hearts. Set aside time for real conversations. Ask questions like, what's something that I do that makes you feel most loved and appreciated? Or is there anything weighing on you that you haven't shared with me yet? The last challenge to intimacy that I want to talk about is past hurts and unforgiveness. Now, I know we touched on this big time on the last episode, but I want to talk about it again, just real quickly. Wounds from past mistakes or betrayals can make it hard to fully trust and be vulnerable. Forgiving is a daily choice. When you are hurt, address what you're feeling with your husband. Release your bitterness and anger and move on. Colossians 3:13 says, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you." Let go of resentment so you can move forward in love. Marriage is a journey, and intimacy doesn't happen automatically. It's something we cultivate through daily choices. If you're feeling distant from your husband, start small. Pick one area, spiritual, emotional, or physical, and make an intentional effort to grow in that area. God will bless your obedience. Pray for your marriage, speak words of love, show affection, and trust that God is working even in the hard moments. I hope this encouraged you today. If it did, share it with a friend who might need this message. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time, remember, your marriage is a ministry, and God is with you every step of the way. Once again, thank you for joining me today. Remember, you are deeply loved and cherished by God, and your faith journey is a beautiful testament to His grace. As you go through your week, may you walk in His wisdom and shine His light in all that you do. Don't forget to subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube so you can be notified about each release and all updates. Until next time, stay blessed and keep growing in His love.